Okay, the Hotep subscribers. Um, so this is gonna be real different. I actually have a in-person class that I'm teaching. It is at community education. It's a community education program. It's called History 5652, and the title is Introduction to Egyptian Hieroglyphs. So I am actually practicing what I'm going to teach, and I am willing to share this on Facebook with my subscribers because you guys know me, and maybe you could give me some feedback. Okay, I hope you enjoy, but be prepared. Uh, this is a dress rehearsal for something I'm doing in person. I thank you in advance. Okay, for this course, students will be able to read and understand basic ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs as we explore the sacred text as it is written on papyri, tombs, and temples. And students will be able to understand the long history of the development of ancient Egyptian civilization as the gift of the Nile River, which originates in Uganda, Kenya, and Ethiopia. And if students ever opt to visit Egypt or an Egyptian exhibit at a local museum, they will have a greater understanding of the inscriptions and appreciation of ancient Egyptians' contribution to human civilization. So overall, the objective of this course is for all participants to be able to read the language of the quote unquote mummies and or identify important features of the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, which is better known as and will be referred to as Mdw Ntr. So we will explore these uh, topics over the next 6 weeks. Topic number one, Necharet Ma'at. Let me just point out at the top, as it were, that the numeral system that we use, the symbols for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 here, those are Hindu Arabic numerals. And the letters that we use in English are all what we identify as Roman alphabet. We don't typically identify that, but that's an important part of understanding the language that we're about to look at. So the six units are Necharet Ma'at, Necharet Aset, Necher Jehuti, Nesud Biti Ma'at Kara, the book of coming forth by day and by night. And week six, we'll be exploring the tomb of Mena. So while the focus, the central focus, is being able to read the Medu Neter, and so we have this image which has a number of sacred symbols that we'll be able to identify at the end. But along with reading the Medu Neter, we are also a history course, and we will, investigate and explore the history as best I can regarding events along the area that we call the Nile Valley. So the Medu Neter is comprised of many symbols that represent living and or not living objects, and those Medu Neter symbols are translated into phonemes or sounds. And the way we approach this is uh, in three steps. Now, number one, we need to recognize the symbol, right? So, looking from left to right, some of these symbols we might recognize, be able to say what they are. But the second step in the process, after recognizing the symbol, is to transliterate the symbol. And transliterating basically means rewriting that symbol using the Roman alphabet. And then the third step is really the step that's a little tricky to some degree, and that is to translate. So those are the three steps that we will use in our approach. We're going to recognize the symbol, transliterate the sacred symbol, and then try our best to translate this sacred language into English. So, um, let me start off by saying that these sacred symbols were used by Africans along the Nile Valley for thousands of miles, over thousands and probably tens of thousands of years, we're not sure, until the temples were closed by the Roman Emperor Theodosius under what they called the Theodosian Decree in 391 of the Common Era. That was really only 1,600 years ago. Um, but these symbols are called hieroglyphs in the Greek language. So the Greek language, they would say these are hieroglyphs. Hieroglyphs is probably translated in English as sacred script. Um, but these symbols we will be calling by their correct name, which is Mdw Ntr, and they have remained unchanged. Um, and so all of the writing that we see is written using these same sacred symbols. Okay, so let me take a step back for myself, and as someone from New York says, let me reintroduce myself. So in the beginning, back in way back in 1987, I was working with that young man on the left, that is Professor Joseph McLaren, and I was writing a paper on the history of mathematics and Egypt and the connection. And he said, "Well, why don't you go to Egypt?" And so we did. He and I, joined together and we traveled to Egypt, where I was confronted by a lot of symbols, like those symbols in the center, that I had no knowledge of, and I was thrown by that fact because you know I just about had a second master's degree in from the educational system, so thought I should know some things. But again, just moving on to continue the story, we see the symbols in the center, which are again Mdw Ntr. If we look to the right on that figure that's laying, we see on the belt, if you look carefully, the same symbol, and then it's kind of hard to see, but on his necklace there's the same symbol. So that symbol is called a shanu, and that's going to be important because that helps us identify people. It's like saying, "This is my name." So when I traveled to Egypt in 1987, Professor McLaren, or Joe as I call him now, knew about as much as I did. So it was very helpful to be with someone who knew a whole lot more. So standing to my left is Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen, and he's someone who has traveled extensively up and down the Nile Valley, and he has written numerous books. But the book that I reference often is this book, Black Man of the Nile and His Family, because he has identified the names of the rulers of the Nile Valley, identified them by, again, identifying them from seeing them and copying them from temple walls. So very helpful to be there with somebody who knows what they're doing. So unfortunately, after I left in '87, I was able to take a group of students from the school I worked in to Egypt in 1988 because I mean I needed to get back. I needed to figure out a way to get back, and the school offered international trips, so it was a perfect match. So I went back, took students, faculty, parents, and my family. It was a great second experience. Okay, so enough of personal history. Now let's get into the language. So the Rosetta Stone was a key find for one of the soldiers of Napoleon Bonaparte. I remember this being the late 1700s, maybe 1798, 1789. Um, but the Rosetta Stone was written in three languages, and that's critical. Most of the information, again, had been hidden, buried. Um, and again, that was what 391 of the Common Era. So we're talking 1798. So almost 1400 years later, you know, we find, or Napoleon soldiers find a way to identify the Medunetja. So the top text is comprised of 14 lines of Medunetja, and the middle is 32 lines of Medunetja. Two different ways of writing Medunetja. One is kind of a print like we do, or the typewriter, and the other is a script, like when we sign our names. And they call it different names. They're both hieroglyphics in Greek. They're both Medunetja in terms of how we should identify them. But the third, the bottom part, the final piece that was written in Greek, and it's 34 lines. No, I'm sorry, 54 lines. So again, logically speaking, someone started off at the top writing it in Medunetja, continued writing it in a script form of Medunetja, and then finish it off with the Greek alphabet, right? I had this quote that I like. There are only two reliable ways of learning anything about a long vanquished, quote unquote, civilization. And the first is by being able to read its language. I like that quote because I agree with that quote. Okay, so we draw our attention to the vertical chenille on the right. Inside that chenille at the top, because we would read that from top to bottom, is what's identified as a house, and below the house would be what we would identify as a sphere, or an arrow, not an arrow, but a sphere, right? And so that's inside those that symbol, which is a chenille, which is again physically a rope with a knot at the bottom. So that one we would read from top to bottom, and would read that as per a. That becomes pharaoh in our language now, and so they tend to call every ruler pharaoh, but that is not the case. You only had this symbol when there was no known person sitting in the throne as the leader. Then the scribe would write in the great house, that translates to great house, per. So the symbols on the left. So since we're reading towards the bottom of the chenille where the loop is, so the top chenille will be read from right to left, from the house down to the sphere, and the bottom chenille will be read from left to right, from the house down to the sphere. So Medunetja can be read left to right, right to left, or top to bottom. So, what I like about Dr. Ben's book, Black Men and the Nile and His Family, is he gets his material from the original source. So the names that he has listed in his book match these Medunetjas that are carved on the wall inside of a temple in an area called Abydos. So the information has been fact checked, and actually, I did a whole lesson on these symbols. These are a list of the rulers of the Nile Valley over a time period. What is there, like 8 names here? That's one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, eight. Yeah, so these are 8 different rulers or leaders along the Nile Valley, and so we know that because we see their names listed inside of the chenille. And at some point along the line, we will be reading all of these. So keep that in mind. So a Medu is made up of or comprised of symbols that we can actually see. So very often we do not have to guess at its, I would say, implications or connotations, maybe a better word. But they also can be transliterated from the symbol into the Roman alphabet, which is the task that we are going to perform as we proceed to again remember. We can recognize what we are looking at. We're going to transliterate that, and then we will make our effort at translating it. Okay, so we use the Roman alphabet to do our transliteration. There is another alphabet that they use. It's not on my computer, so I can't use that font. And so you've probably seen it with German words, even like Uber, if you know about that. There's a symbol over the U that gives it a different sound. Well, there's letters like that in the phonetic system that I am not using. I am using strictly the Roman alphabet. So when we see the owl, we will transliterate that with the letter M. When we see what's identified as a quail chick, I have three of them. We only need to see one. You can see three. That's transliterated with the letter W or U because it has that oo sound as opposed to the owl, which has the sound. When we see the Egyptian vulture, it's a triliteral. That means it has three letters and it's transliterated with the letters M, W, and T, pronounced usually moot. When we see the ibis bird, the black ibis bird, it's transliterated with the letters G and M, right? And I will tell you right now that that transliterates to GM, but we also translate that as to look for or to find, and you might be able to guess why we get that translation. Then we have the horned viper, which is transliterated with the letter F, and hopefully you know how that F letter sounds in English. Um, but we will use that language. We'll be talking about that. And then the rope. The rope can be coiled in several different ways, but most often it has the H. Sometimes what we identified as a silent H, um, and those are two that I can think of offhand because there's the H that sounds like HK. Yeah. So and then we have the loaf of bread, which is transliterated with the letter T, and it's also the feminine ending. So like in a language like Spanish, the feminine endings are A. And so in the Medu Neter, the feminine ending is the loaf of bread, which we transliterate with the letter T. And then we have the lotus flower, which doesn't come up often as a flower. And again, it's a triliteral, so it has a S, S, N, and the middle N is more like SH, right? So I got to put the SH inside the parentheses, but I just opted to put it that way. So these are key transliterations, and that's one of the things that we will work on as we go along. Okay, so this course, to remember, the objective is for students to be able to read Metanetia, but I know we want to do some writing because that's the sort of humans we are. Reading and writing go together. I can appreciate that. So in the center, you can see some of my handwriting, right? And I'm sure the scribes would give me a low grade. But so reading from left to right, that is supposed to be a flag on a pole. To the left of that, we could see what I was trying to mimic, and that is indeed a flag on a pole. A lot better to see, and that term comes up a lot. And then beyond that is a walking stick. Again, the actual walking stick looks better than my representation. So this is the name of the language. It is Mdw Ntr. Now, the flag on the pole is Ntr. It has honorific position. That means it's always going to be first in the word. So if I want to say the word Mdw Ntr, I'm going to write the Ntr symbol first and then the Mdw. So the symbol on the right is also Mdw Ntr, but that is being read from right to left. So in this case, we're reading so into the flag, right? So on the far left, we see the sacred symbol for the sun, a circle with a line, a stroke below it, a line below it, and a dot. Don't always see the dot, as you can see an actual representation of the sun right below my handwriting, right? And again, remember that this is Mdw Ntr, so keep that in mind. And Mdw Ntr is representations of real things. So the sun is a representation of that real object that we call the sun. So it, of course, should look like the sun. And because there are other circular symbols, again, you have to be uh, careful which symbol represents the sun and which might represent something else. But it's not hard to tell once you start reading the Mdw Ntr. Okay, so the word for sun is the mouth and the arm and hand, which you can see again my handwriting. Below that, that's the mouth, and below that mouth is the arm and outreach arm and hand. And to the right of that, we see the sun with the dot and the symbol. And the symbol is read as it is what it is. So when I see uh, the symbol Ra with the R and A, and I see the sign to say it is what it is, then I know that they're talking about the sun. Now, the symbol that we see of the sun to the right is also the sun, but in this case, the sun is encircled by two cobras. The cobra to the right is wearing what we will identify as the red crown of Lower Egypt, and the cobra on the left is wearing the white crown of Upper Egypt, and they both have the Ankh connected to them. So there's a lot more uh, significance to the picture of the sun here. So Middle Nature has levels, and so it's important to understand that or try to appreciate the different levels. So at one level, we can see on the left in my handwriting the symbol of nature and the seated man. That's a seated man with a beard, believe me, and the symbol of Ra behind the seated nature. Because the seated man with the beard is nature. So the symbol of nature and the see the man with the beard are basically redundant, but one I shouldn't say one emphasizes the other. So this is the nature Ra, right? As opposed to just the right below that we have the arm and the hand and the solar disk with the is what it is. So that's Ra, and then we have simply the solar disk with it is what it is. But the images of the solar disk with a cobra encircling it, and it's on the head of the Egyptian uh, uh, falcon. So again, in Mdw so in this case, the actual images are being read from right to left. So we can tell because I have the symbol for Mdw where the Netya has honorific position. But we are reading. We know that we're reading. Are supposed to read into the faces or read the Mdw into the faces. Now it's not easy to see, but inside of those symbols, in the first column, there's actually what we identify as a stool. There's a loaf of bread. I'm using my handwriting now, and I'm writing from right to left. And then we have the twisted flax, right? And so that, and we have the seated netcher behind that. So that's the name Ptah. So, but we know this is Ptah for other reasons. And again, I don't know that we're gonna get too much into identifying all of the netchers, but this is one of the Egyptian letters. This is Ptah again. And we say Ptah, we add a vowel in there, even though it just transliterates to P, T, H. Okay, so the first set of sacred symbols of Meta Netia that we are going to practice, for those of you who are uh, interested in practicing this, and those who are not, I guess you could just skip the next few slides. So the first thing we have is the ostrich feather, and that's the symbol of the Netred Ma'at. So sometimes you see the Netred Ma'at, and sometimes you just see the ostrich feather. Okay. Below that, we have the sickle-shaped part of a boat, right? That's a sickle-shaped part of a boat. And I should have a good image of that boat, but I don't have it in these slides. And there is a horizontal black rectangular piece there. And the material that I'm using is cannot identify what that is, but it's transliterated with the letter M. And again, just going back, The ostrich feather is transliterated as Ma'at, M-A apostrophe A-T. It gets the entire name. And um, the sickle-shaped part of the boat is transliterated with the letters M-A. The arm and the hand is transliterated with the letter A. And the loaf of bread is transliterated with the letter T. Okay? Okay, so next we have this is a pintail duck, right? So again, notice my drawings kind of looks close. I mean, it's just general, get the gist of it. The top duck, the top pintail duck is all by itself, and that is transliterated with the letters S-A, and we say sa, right? And below that, the pintail duck has the loaf of bread behind it. So we would say that's sat, right? So sa is translated as son, and sat, of course, being effeminate, would be translated as daughter. So we have sa and sat. All right, so here we have the rope as a twisted flax. We have the cup right below that. The cup alone is HNT. The twisted flax is a reinforcement of that. We call it a phonetic complement. So just in case you forgot the cup was HNT, they have the H right there for a couple of reasons. One, to reinforce the word, and I'm going to say also for symmetry. Below that, we have the profile of a face. Don't judge me. I'm not really an artist, but I don't have to write this often. The profile is transliterated with the letters T, P, Y. Tepi, the face looking forward, transliterated with the letters H and R, and that's hair. So we have H N T, T P Y, H R. Okay, so here's some kind of plane figures. The top vertical is, I think, represents the number one, similar to the Roman numeral one. The horizontal symbol, which I did a terrible job of reproducing, is a tongue of land. Right? I don't know why it's identified or drawn that way, but it's a tongue of land. And right below that, the piece at the angle, that's also a tongue of land. So tongue of land. Both of them are TA or ta. Another way that they would show a tongue of land is that horizontal piece at the bottom with the three little grains of sand or whatever beneath that. That is also ta. So, so this is land. Each of them represent land. Um, so, and the one, so it's one land, I dare say. Okay, so here we have the reed leaf. The reed leaf is transliterated with the letter I. Um, Yet they say that there's no vowels in the language, so I always find that a little confusing. But again, the reed leaf is transliterated with the letter I. Then we have the quail chick, or we also call it the oo chick. Uh, that's not my best rendition of an oo chick, but the keys are, it has a big body, long legs, and a little tiny wing, right? So if you could get that, you're good. And so that would be EU. And we have the jar stool. The jar stool by itself is GR. But just in case you forgot it's GR, then they have its phonetic complement. That's that mouth. So the the jar stool by itself is GR, but having the mouth with it, confirms that that's GR. Now, again, there is the loaf of bread, which I didn't reproduce here, but you could see that loaf of bread. It's always represented as black. The symbol is always consistent in color, by the way. So that would be Gert, right? Gert. And then we have the three mountains, which is translated oddly enough as land or foreign land sometimes, right? So given the information from what we just did, what we're going to do now is read this Mdw Ntr. Um, of course, this will happen in the classroom, so um, I refer you to my lesson 3, which actually does this reading. Okay, I'm just going to finish talking about Netrit Ma'at. Ma'at is, again, as I said earlier, he represents the idea of truth, balance, order, justice. And he is always present at the weighing of the heart. So in this particular vignette, I guess is the word best describes it, you could see Netret Ma'at. She is on the scale on the right hand side. And on the left hand side, that's the heart. And the heart is being weighed against the scale of Ma'at. So until our next lesson, we can go practice some of what we've learned. And please share any questions or comments that you have. All right. Thank you very much.